And by the time I did get to asking for help, I'd come off work. In my contorted way of thinking at this time, I thought, well, you know, the only reason I'm drinking this much is because work is so stressful. So if I come off work and get a chance to recover and take time out and just get myself sorted out without any clear plan, and how I was going to sort myself out wasn't at all obvious. But anyway, I'd come off work and take a break. And I went to my GP, and she told her I was stressed, and she gave me a sick note to stay off work. And instead of getting better, all that happened was I started to drink in the mornings because there was no longer a reason not to. So the impact of, you know, my attempts to solve my problem were just getting me dug deeper in. So when I eventually did ask for help, I went back to my GP, and I tried to tell her about my drinking. I did tell her about my drinking. I was ashamed of it, but it was the first time I'd actually admitted it to a professional. And her response is really interesting. She said to me, "But David, you're not a drinker." By this time, I've been drinking alcoholically for 10 years. You're not a drinker. She was lovely. She was a really nice person. She was compassionate, but she didn't want me to be an alcoholic. I didn't want me to be alcohol dependent. But she didn't either. And she sent me to see a general adult psychiatrist at the local hospital. Unfortunately, this was a doctor who was on the ball and who diagnosed my alcohol dependence within sort of 10 minutes of meeting me, and re-referred me to an addiction psychiatrist. And that was when I started to get professional help for my drinking. So the consultant I saw was a kind, sympathetic man who gave me plenty of his time. And the first thing that had to happen was a detox, because I was drinking dependently, and it wouldn't have been safe to suddenly stop without medical assistance. So I was given a community detox, which was one of the most unpleasant experiences of my life.
What did it involve?
Detoxes.
What did it involve?
It just involved it involved a detox using librium, which is a benzodiazepine, plus a pile of other stuff. I mean, the main thrust of this outpatient treatment was medical intervention. So that I was on lots of tablets for vitamin tablets to stop neurological complications of withdrawal, tablets to stop me craving, antidepressant tablets to help my mood, and then this 5 or 7 day course of high dose, starting high dose and then tailing off librium, which, I mean, the treatment was exactly as you know, in terms of the benzo detox, was exactly the what it should have been, but it was just a really, really horrible experience. I didn't find the benzos very effective, and I was so anxious, couldn't sleep. I was agitated. The level of anxiety was at the level of pacing, couldn't sit still, constantly moving and in turmoil and distressed. It was really, really unpleasant. And after the detox was finished, that feeling of anxiety just continued. And instead of, I wasn't drinking, I was put on disulfiram, which is or Antabuse is its brand name, medication, which gives you an unpleasant reaction if you drink on it.
You were rattling with all those drugs. You were rattling.
I was rattling. I was taking, at one stage, I was taking between 20 and 30 tablets or capsules a day.
Wow.
So when I stopped drinking, alcohol was still an enormous problem in my life because I couldn't stop thinking about drinking. So every waking moment, it seemed, unless I was distracted, and it was so difficult to be distracted because I was so agitated and couldn't focus on anything. Insomnia was just awful. it was horrid. It was absolutely horrid, and it was suffering. I mean, it wasn't. I'd say that it was more difficult than when I was drinking. Certainly in terms of my ability to cope, it was pretty awful. I'm quite glad of that looking back. I would hate to go through it again, but I'm quite glad that I can remember it clearly, because I now know what my patients, some of them, I think I had probably quite a brisk reaction during and after detox that not everyone has. But I know, some people have the same experience, and it's really good for me to remember that, because I need to work hard to try to alleviate that for people. Anyway, the rest of treatment, once the detox was done, consisted of medication and a little bit of diary filling and CBT work with a community psychiatric nurse. And there's a few things were mentioned. I brought up the concept of therapy. I was aware that some of the stuff that happened to me in earlier life might be relevant to my drinking in the here and now, and that wasn't really supported at the clinic. That therapy would have a part to play, and also I think accessing it might have been a challenge. The other thing that was brought up, I didn't bring this up, the consultant brought this up, was mutual aid. There was actually, at the same time I was visiting the clinic, on a particular day, there was a mutual aid meeting actually running in the same building. And the consultant asked me about what I knew about mutual aid, and I said, not very much. I'd had some patients that had gone to AA over the years, but I really didn't know anything about it. Which, again, as a GP looking after people with alcohol and drug problems, you might think I could have been better informed, but I wasn't, I'm ashamed to say. So he asked me about it, and I said, well, I've never been. And he said, well, I'm not sure it's going to be right for you. And I'm thinking back, I can't think of the reason for that. I don't think I was even curious enough to ask why it wouldn't be right for me. So I kind of just accepted that and moved on. As it turns out, later in this story, that it was exactly the right fit for me. It was connecting to other people was a huge part of my eventual recovery.